Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 274 of How Do You Write? I'm Rachael Herron, and I'm so glad that you are here with me today as we are speaking to Chandra Prasad on one of the big questions that we all run into, that we all run across, how to solve the problem of being stuck, of getting stuck in your work. Writer's block is a thing that is highly contested. I contest it myself. However, getting stuck really does happen. So I know that you will enjoy this interview. I'm a little low energy as I give you my own personal update right now. I'm fighting a migraine. I think it's brought on by this tremendous lot of weather that we're having in Wellington. Super weird air pressures happening and a lot of rain storms and thunderstorms that suddenly clear to blue skies and warmth. I left the house yesterday morning to go hang out with some lovely, lovely writer friends from Romance Writers of New Zealand that I have made. And oh my gosh, it's just so fun to be with people who, have the same brain that we do. And we always want to talk about writing all the time. But I left my house and it was cold and rainy. And I wore a dress and a sweater and leggings and socks and heavy boots and my rain jacket. And by the time I got about 45 minutes up the coast, up to Paraparaumu, which is where my friend lives, it was literally about 78 degrees out and warm and muggy and tropical. It might have actually, I think my phone at one point said it hit 80 and I stripped off basically everything except the dress. And conversely, the other day was bright and sunny and I put on a ton of sunscreen to go out, and then it rained and I ended up having sunscreen in my eyes because it washed all my sunscreen off. I love the changeability of living on this tip of an island. It is hilarious to look at what the wind is doing on those weather apps because it is northerly, it's southerly, it's southeasterly, it's northwesterly, all within 15 minutes or so. The winds are always changing here, and I adore it. I love it, and also my brain doesn't like it too much. So I have taken the drugs that I need to take, and I am waiting for them to kick in, hopefully before the migraine actually lands full force. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you at all. So I will keep this nice and short and sweet and just tell you that things are going great. I am joyfully working, easily working on this revision of Replenish, which is now called Stay. And I will tease just a little bit. My friend Mona McDermott is starting a new podcast, and it's going to be brilliant. She's coaching people on it through their creative process. And I am lucky enough to be one of her early coaching clients on this show. And she's really helped me break through a lot of stuff with the book. And when her show launches, I'll be dropping a tiny little teaser in here for you to hear what it sounds like. And I will be sending you the link so you can actually hear me work through in real time some of the stuff I have been processing and dealing with and trying to figure out about this book, which has been fighting me for a long time. It is no longer fighting me anymore. It became clear what this book wanted to be, and it was absolutely not the first two things I wanted it to be. The third thing is the right thing. And it feels really good to be revising towards something that I understand now and love now. So that will be coming. So that's going really well. I just wanted to take a second to thank new patrons because I haven't done this in a little bit. Sandy Miranda edited her pledge up. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Dear Sandy is also a student of mine. Mariah Faye, welcome to the level at which I get to be your mini coach. Mariah Faye, I know you've got that big question for me. I can't wait to answer it. I was going to do it today. Might not do it today. It'll be very, very soon, but I want to be very smart for you. And that's not right now. Julie Colaccio, thank you. Thank you so much. Elizabeth Benson, hello. Cassie M. Newell, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And Tyler just came in a little bit ago. And Yvonne Bennett edited her pledge up also to the mini coaching level. Thank you, all of you, for doing that. If you ever want to look at those benefits, which include getting the essay I write every month and that I really love writing every month. That's over at patreon.com/Rachael. Okay, let us jump right into the interview now with Chandra. I know you are going to enjoy it, and I hope wherever you are that your head is clear, there are no migraines, you're feeling well, and that you get to sit down at the page for even a very small amount of time today. Scratch out a few sentences. And by scratch out, I don't mean actually scratch out, I mean write down, and then you can scratch out, and then you can write a little bit more. But do some of your own work, no matter what. It will release some of that pressure you might be feeling about, I have to write, I have to write, I have to write. Okay, so write for 10 minutes, write for 15 minutes. You get to check it off your list. You did it. And I'm very proud of you. All right, my friends, we will talk soon. Enjoy the interview. Well, I could not be more pleased today to welcome to the show Chandra Prasad. Hello, Chandra.
Hello. So happy to be here.
I'm so happy to talk to you. Let me give you a little bit of an introduction for those who might not know you. Chandra Prasad is the author of the critically acclaimed novels On Borrowed Wings, Death of a Circus, Breathe in the Sky, and Damselfly, a female-driven young adult text used both individually in classrooms and in parallel with Lord of the Flies. Prasad is also the editor of and a contributor to Mixed, the first ever anthology of short stories on the multiracial experience. Being half Asian herself, Prasad has long acknowledged the dearth of significant mixed race characters in literature, especially for teens and children, and has sought to bring awareness to this issue. For this reason, Prasad chose multiracial protagonists for both her YA novels, Damselfly and Mercury Boys. Prasad's shorter works have appeared in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times Magazine, The Week, and Teen Voices. She is also a contributor to New Haven Noir, a short story anthology edited by Amy Bloom, which is amazing, and the author of a how-to guide for young job seekers. A graduate of Yale, Prasad is currently working on several books and writing projects. She lives in Connecticut with her husband, sons, and assorted pets. Oh my goodness. So this is a show about process and about how writers get the writing done. And you have so much on that bio. You've got kids, you've got the pets. How do you get it all done? Tell us about your particular writing process, if you don't mind.
It's very imperfect. So even though it sounds like I've done a lot, day to day, I struggle like everyone else to kind of get my stuff together and do the right thing. So, I'm a daily work in progress like everybody else for sure. But typically,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say you're working on a couple of projects, it sounded like, too. So tell me what that typical day looks like when you're balancing all of those.
Usually, in the past, I've liked to work on one project at a time, but more recently, maybe in the last 5 years, I've found that it's a little easier to work on two or even three. Like spending most of my time on one, but then if I'm having a bad day on that particular one, or not able to find my voice, it's a struggle. I'll switch to another one, which is usually more or less serious or in a different genre or whatever. And having that variability seems to be helping. So I'm going to probably stick to that routine of having more than one thing in the works.
Do you ever have to decide to work on one when the other one is calling you due to deadlines? How do you manage that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's really funny because it seems like the one I'm not supposed to be working on is the one that's calling me, which might just be my personality. The rebellious writer or whatever. Like I want to work on the one that isn't immediately needed. But I think that tension between the two kind of help, or tension between the two or three kind of helps. Actually, yeah. So I think that is the way to go, at least for me right now.
When you're working on those different projects, are they a mixture of fiction and nonfiction?
Right now, I'm just working on fiction, but it's different. So I've written, general fiction, more adult fiction, and then more recently I've been doing YA novels. And although there's a lot of overlap between the two, I think more than ever, there are differences too. And so the two projects I'm working on now, one is more for the adult market and one is more YA. So that change in voice is good to have. When one is kind of difficult, I switch to the other. Yeah.
I've often bounced between novels and nonfiction projects, and I find that okay. But for me, keeping track of the characters is so
Yeah.
hard. How do you, I guess I'm really interested in how do you make the shift? Does it take just a few minutes of being in the next manuscript to get back into it, or does it take a day or a week, or how does that work?
For all my books, I do tend to have a pretty good plot summary ahead of time. And I also
Ah,
have, yeah, because I'm not very good at just capriciously moving forward. I don't do that well. I go in directions that are, not helpful. So it helps to have a pretty rough plot outline,
yeah.
but with details. So I know where I'm going. I don't necessarily know exactly how I'm going to get there, but I know the key plot points I need to hit, and I know kind of the arc of the story um, ahead of time always. And then same with my characters, I have at least a few paragraphs about each one, so that I know a little bit about their backgrounds, their personalities, maybe their motivation for what they're doing. And inevitably the characters will take me in directions I didn't necessarily intend to go in, but the basis for them is still there. I still know what I started out with, which is always helpful.
So you have something to refer to when you sit down. I guess I was asking for more of my own pantser mentality, which I would love to outline more than I do, and I just struggle against it. And I think that if I were working on two books at the same time, I would pants my way till they accidentally all met each other at the grocery store. Like the books would
Which
merge.
might turn out to be a pretty good story. Hey,
That would be interesting. Yeah, exactly. Let me ask you what your biggest challenge is when it comes to writing.
distraction for sure. I think I've always had trouble kind of just concentrating. I hear from other writers. One very prolific novelist once told me that he can write on a very good day 40 pages. And to me, this is just mind blowing. I'm like, what do on a good day, I get like a couple, maybe like three, four, if it's like just a really good day. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like that. My productivity is slow and steady. And I just really need, my own room. Kind of, I need to shut off electronics. I try to turn off internet. I try to make sure my kids are at school when I'm writing, that it's not a time when they're home. Shoo the pets out of the room. I'm very easily distracted. So I have to have that space for myself where I can't help but concentrate because there's nothing else that I can be doing.
I miss that about being able to go out to cafes and write because once you get to the cafe,
Yeah,
especially if you don't know the Wi-Fi password, there's nothing else for
there
you to
you
do
go.
after a
Right,
while,
right, right. Yeah.
what is your biggest joy when it comes to writing?
I think my biggest joy is those rare, unexpected moments where someone emails me, or I do a lot of school visits, more
Mm,
remotely. COVID started, and a kid will say, "Oh, I just really connected with this character," or you hit the nail on the head. It doesn't happen that often where someone's like very heartfelt words, but when that happens, I just think it's all worth it because somehow whatever I've written has connected with someone else. And that's what we all long for when we're reading books,
yeah.
that have that moment of connectivity, or like, wow, that eureka moment where somehow it hits exactly right emotionally, or in terms of purpose, or in terms of like whatever we're going through in our own lives. So those are the times that I feel most inspired, that some kind of good out of my writing is affecting someone else.
I never really thought about how special and incredible that is too to be affecting young people because I write for adults. So, an adult email, an adult response is great. But hearing from a young adult or a kid that you may have touched very deeply, like that's the kind of effect you can have on a person that never goes away. I
Yeah,
remember those books
true.
that changed my life when I was
Oh,
15 and 17 and
me
10
too.
and I don't remember the book that changed my life last year because I've read, 60 cents. So that
Yeah,
must feel
yeah.
amazing.
It feels really good. And to be fair, kids are so honest, and thank God, like they don't have filters. So if they don't like something, they're gonna say that too. And I hear just as much of that. Like, I hated this character, or I loved the book until
Yeah.
the end. It stunk like you so I hear that. So I mean they'll say it, and I know they'll say it because my own kids will say that about any, what they're reading, or what,
Yeah.
anything in their lives. And I love the candor because with adults we tend to turn the volume down on that and learn
Right.
how to be more evasive. But most kids haven't learned that yet, and thank God. Like they're just brutally, beautifully honest. And I like that about the teen and kid audience.
Yeah. You can trust it. If they say, I loved your book, but I hated this part, you know that they hated that part, but they loved your book.
Yeah,
They're not just being
exactly.
polite. They're not just saying it because they feel like they should. Oh, I love that. Can you share a craft tip of any sort with us?
Yeah, sure. I have a couple. One I learned from the writer of the graphic novel series Amulet, which is
No,
really, really
I've
graphic
never
novel
read that.
series. It's beautifully done. It's so good. And I think I was at I think it was like a diverse writers workshop, and I was on a panel, and then in my spare time when I wasn't on that panel, I went and watched other panels, and he was on one, and he was really, really interesting and wise. And he said that he never, ever, ever sends anything he's done until at least a 24-hour period that he's had to just kind of contemplate. So even if something's due and his
Mm,
editor needs it ASAP, he's still not going to send it for 24 hours, because in that 24 hours, inevitably, there will be some, change, whether it be big or small. And I realized that I actually had been doing that kind of all along, but I'd never articulated it. So it felt really good to hear someone else say it and to kind of let it sink in, because that is absolutely true, that it always helps to wait. And in that
mhm.
same vein, I don't know, you've probably had this experience too, since you're an author as well, that um, when you're struggling and grappling to get something right and it's just not happening, or you can't quite figure it out, the best thing you can do is just to completely stop and do something that's just brain numbing, like do the dishes, take a shower, vacuum, take a walk. And inevitably, it is during those moments where your brain is off, that the answer will come. And I think that kind of connects back to what this author of Amulet was saying, that it's in that time, in that space, that you must give yourself. You'll kind of find the wisdom to make the corrections that you really need to make.
I have had deep experiences with both of these things because I am not one of those people who leaves myself anytime. Usually it's, the last hour of the deadline and I send it swooshing off. And as soon as it leaves my fingers, I think of the one thing that I wanted to do that I forgot to do. Um, oh, yeah.
Have
What
you
was,
ever sent an
yeah.
email like saying
Oh, yeah.
with the header, use this version instead?
Absolutely. And I absolutely can't stand it when I do that. Actually, Gmail now has a good feature that you can turn on that holds your email for 30 seconds. So if you see that you have a typo to someone, or if you have that revelation, you can pull it back and it actually pulls all the way back. My brain just frits. What was the second tip that you gave? Because I had something to mention about that too.
Yeah. Okay. So first one is to wait 24 hours. And the
Right.
second one is just to do something
Oh,
that's
right.
separate from writing, like,
That's one of those things that I
mundane,
think
do
is
something mundane.
one of the best pieces of advice. And I struggle with it a lot because I get so frustrated, and my frustration always manifests as stubbornness. So then I will sit at this desk until I figure it out. So I always kind of have to learn it the hard way. And I wish that there was a good way for us to remember to do it. How do you remember to get up and walk away when you're frustrated like that?
I hear you. I mean, I'm stubborn too. And I am exactly the same way. And it's horrible because I'll like squander hours, fighting over a sentence when it's just better to walk away. So
Yeah.
no, I'm by no means like, these are my tips, but I have to tell the tips to myself too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Maybe write a little note to yourself. It's
Yeah.
it's hard, it's tough. It's always a struggle, but getting the right words on the page at the end of the day is almost always worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in revision of an older book that I got the rights back to that I'm going to self-publish and re-release. And I've been having these kind of revelations where just yesterday I realized that the sentences that I feel are awkward and clunky, and then I'm like, well, I should have fixed those 10 years ago. I'm going to fix it now. And I sit there and I study it and I struggle with it. Almost always it's better just to lift it out. If it's that awkward, lift it out. Did you need it? If you did need something, can you just rewrite it? That has been my most recent 24-hour revelation that I've been working with.
You know what? That's a really good point, right? I mean, if it's just like somehow rubbing you the wrong way, why not take it out altogether, right? And
Yeah.
you can always find it again if you
Yeah.
change your mind, right?
You can stick the information in another way. I love this. What thing in your life affects your writing in a surprising way?
I was thinking about this question, and I think it's got to be all the little things that I didn't think would affect my writing,
Ooh.
like listening to NPR. This is a
Mm,
great example. I'm writing. I have it's in the really early stages, but like a YA idea of a bunch of high schoolers. That's all I'll say right now. And I've been just like struggling with kind of giving them their identities. There are 4 or 5 of them, and I had like 3 or 4 of their identities, and then one of them I just couldn't kind of decide. And I was listening to NPR, and um it was the show about Latina uh power lifters of all things, and kind of like the machismo that they have to fight through to kind of do what they really love doing. And one of them was speaking, and she was great. I was just riveted by what she was saying. And I somehow, like, bits of that personality somehow hit me like, that's exactly what I needed to do for this character. And, would I have predicted that I would have picked that up from a Latina, power lifter on NPR? Of course not. Right. But it's that unexpected moment when you kind of just allow yourself to be receptive to the things going on
yeah.
around you that kind of inspire you.
I think there's two parts of that. There's the synchronicity aspect that I think always happens when we are open and listening, and you're thinking about these characters there in the back of your mind, but also the willingness to um, expose yourself, to fill the well, to be listening to NPR, to be listening to podcasts, and to be watching TV, and to be listening to
Yeah.
what your kids say. How old are your kids?
My kids are 14 and 10, but like in a month, both will be 15 and 11. So
Do
they're
they
at
read
a
your
really
work?
not too much, but they're both really, really, really big readers. And I
Mm,
don't actually feel so bad they don't read my work because
mhm.
kind of I don't know. I like it distanced a little bit. If I hear,
Yeah.
a couple hundred other high school kids telling me what they think, I don't really want my own kid. Plus, it's a little weird, honestly. I don't
Mhm.
know. It's just a little weird. It's a little too close to home, but they've chosen, not to read too much.
Yeah.
But what I love about, I mean, any age kid, but especially the ages that they're at now, is that their personalities are so well developed and they have such distinct interests. And I'm constantly, learning from them probably as much as or more than they're learning from me. So it's really interesting to have these two, you know, young minds and personalities that are growing so rapidly. I don't know, I love being a mom, and I love um not even just like the nurturing aspect of it, but the surprises of parenthood and the surprising growth of your kids that they display, emotionally and physically and in many other ways.
I can see the that glow on your face when you talk about them. You
Yeah,
just light
I mean,
light up.
they're good kids.
That's awesome. That
I'm
is really
lucky.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the best book that you read recently, and why did you love it?
Probably the best book I read recently is called I, The Lake of Dead Languages.
Ooh.
I think it's I think it's Carol Goldman, but it's the Lake of Dead Languages, and it was so beautifully done. I don't want to give anything away, but it's about a Latin teacher who has a child, and she used to be at this private school for girls when she herself was a student, and she left, and she comes back to the school, and something happened in her own past that's quite dark. Um, and as she's a teacher, more darkness happens among her students, and it's directly correlated with the lake that's on the
Ooh.
property. And what I loved so much about this book, well, there are a couple of things. The first one is that she let it unfold so naturally. There was never a
Mm,
force of plot. It just unfolded like someone was telling a slow meandering story, and yet you caught fire right away. Like I
that's
still wanted to know what was
mastery.
it was mastery,
Yeah.
right? And the other thing I absolutely loved about this book was the atmosphere she created. I felt like I smelled that lake. I felt like I was putting my feet in that lake. I felt like I could feel the chill of it. The color, the changes the lake had as the seasons changed. I mean, it was just beautifully done. She's a very talented author. And I found myself reading, paragraphs back again or
Ooh,
sentences back again. And that's always the sign of a great book, that you
yeah.
want to see, like, how did that person do that? I'm so caught up in this book. How did that happen?
I
So
love that feeling.
yeah, it was really good. And I just went to the library and got all her other books too. So I'm reading them now.
Thank you. I had not heard of her or that.
Yeah.
Speaking of books that people should be putting on their TBR pile, can you tell us about your most recent book and give us a little
Yeah, I'd love to.
synopsis?
Sure. My most recent book is called Mercury Boys, and it is a young adult book. However, like most young adult books nowadays, it can definitely be read by adults and
Yeah.
has been read by adults. And it's a few different things, but basically, it's about a group of girls who modern day girls, and they form a secret society over the fact that they found a way to visit the people in these old photos called daguerreotypes. They can see the people in these old photos in their dreams, and interact with them. And this is like a super startling discovery they make, and they vow to keep it a secret. And in doing so, they're all kind of um, tightly bound with one another. But as at first, that club is this place of friendship and camaraderie and good things. And slowly but surely, it becomes quite toxic. And we see that, in fact, some of the girls are not quite who they seem. And some of the things that they've purported to happen are not as they seem either. So that's kind of the crux of it. It's really about modern female adolescence and the complex friendships that girls develop, and relationships they have with one another. But it also has a bit of time travel because the girls are visiting these people that lived in the 1800s. So it has a bit of a sci-fi element to it. Certainly a lot of history, real history that's been researched. And it also has some, romantic aspects too. So it's got a little bit of everything.
You had me at Secret Society and Daguerreotypes. That sounds like it
Yeah.
was so much fun to write, was it?
Oh, it was so much fun to write. And the daguerreotypes, for those of you
Yeah,
that
please
don't know,
explain.
and
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people don't know because I didn't know about them either, but it's an early form of photography that didn't last for long. It was only popular for about 25 years. And the reason it was only popular for a short amount of time is that it was really hard to do. It required great mastery of pretty toxic chemicals,
Yeah.
and elements like liquid mercury, which figures heavily in the book. And the people that made daguerreotypes were often chemists because they were the ones that kind of knew how to use these tools. Um, and even though it wasn't popular for very long, you can instantly recognize daguerreotypes because they have this eerie quality to them. They have like a mirror-like quality. In fact, they used to be called mirrors with a memory because they look kind of
Mm.
like a mirror, and they look mystical and magical. And
And they look
um,
like they're about to step right out and talk to you from the past. Yeah.
yes, exactly, they do. And the main characters from the daguerreotypes are in the book, so you can see the daguerreotypes there.
Oh,
You can
very
also
cool.
go, yeah, and you can also go. I have a website. It's just mercuryboys.com, or you could go to my author website, chandraprasad.com, and I have a lot of daguerreotypes on the site too that are really fun to look at. I could spend all day
Oh,
looking at daguerreotypes.
I hope people do that. I can also spend all day, and they're just so different from the photography, the early photography, and the photography that came afterwards. And I knew that it was toxic, but I hadn't actually connected it with the mercury. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay, so where can we find you online?
Oh, well, you can find me at my name, chandraprasad.com, which has a lot of A's in it. It's ChandraPrasad. I'm also on Twitter at Chandra Books, Instagram at Chandra Prasad Books, and I'm on TikTok. So I'm on a few different, social media. You can find me
I
for
love
sure.
TikTok. How are you finding TikTok?
I'm finding it very confusing, and only I can navigate it with the help of my children because I'm just too old for it. I don't
You are
know.
not. I am way older than you, and
I don't think
give it
so.
a give it a little time. I don't know. I just love that
It's
site
fun
so
to go
much.
through though, and I've learned a lot. Like going through. I found out how to take
I
my
know.
contact out today, like a different way of taking contact. Yeah, it's
I
very
love
interesting.
finding those. I did the famous TikTok salmon rice bowl last week, and it was delicious.
Oh, that
So
sounds
yeah.
so good. That sounds so
Thank you
good.
so much, Chandra, for being on the show. It is a joy to
Oh my
talk to
gosh,
you,
it was
and this was
great to talk to
awesome.
you.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
I
much.
love it. I love it. Thank you so much. I love your show, and it was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, and I wish you happy writing. We'll talk soon.